Today we count down the 5 most notorious serial killers in history. From Ted Bundy's charming facade to John Wayne Gacy's horrifying double life, discover the chilling stories behind these infamous killers. We delve into their terrifying crimes, how they evaded capture, and the investigations that finally brought them to justice. Prepare for a spine-tingling look at some of the darkest figures in true crime history. Samuel Little, America's most prolific serial killer, 93 confessed victims. Samuel Little, now recognized as the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history, confessed to killing 93 women over a span of more than 3 decades. Between 1970 and 2005, Little preyed on vulnerable women, many of whom were sex workers, homeless, or struggling with addiction. His victims were often overlooked by society, and many of their cases went unsolved for years. Little's preferred method of murder was strangulation, which left little physical evidence, allowing him to evade capture for decades. Despite his long criminal history, which included arrests for theft and assault, Little was not linked to his murders until 2012, when DNA evidence connected him to the deaths of 3 women in Los Angeles. Once in custody, Little began to confess to dozens of additional murders, offering detailed accounts and even drawing sketches of his victims. His confessions led to the closure of many cold cases across the country. Samuel Little died in prison in 2020 at the age of 80, but his chilling legacy remains. His case highlights how marginalized victims can be overlooked, allowing killers to operate undetected for years. Little's story is a tragic reminder of the importance of pursuing justice for all victims, no matter their background. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, 49 confirmed victims. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, is one of the most prolific serial killers in U.S. history. He was convicted of murdering 49 women, though he confessed to killing over 70 between the 1980s and 1990s in the Seattle, Washington area. Ridgway targeted vulnerable women, including sex workers and runaways, luring them into his truck with the promise of money or rides. Once in a secluded area, Ridgway would strangle his victims, often using his bare hands or a ligature, and then dump their bodies along the Green River or in nearby woods. Ridgway evaded capture for nearly 2 decades, despite police efforts to catch the Green River Killer. It wasn't until 2001, when advancements in DNA technology linked him to several victims, that he was finally arrested. Ridgway's arrest brought closure to families who had waited years for answers. In 2003, Ridgway made a plea deal to avoid the death penalty, agreeing to confess to additional murders in exchange for life in prison without parole. His confessions helped locate the remains of several victims. Ridgway's case remains one of the darkest chapters in true crime, with his cold, calculated killing spree leaving a haunting legacy. Ted Bundy, the charming monster, 30 confirmed victims. Ted Bundy is one of the most infamous and terrifying serial killers in American history. Known for his charm, intelligence, and good looks, Bundy used his disarming persona to lure unsuspecting young women to their deaths. Between 1974 and 1978, Bundy is believed to have murdered at least 30 women across several states, though the true number may be much higher. His method was chilling. He would often pretend to be injured or in need of help, only to abduct, assault, and kill his victims. Bundy's reign of terror spanned multiple states, including Washington, Utah, and Florida. His ability to escape from custody twice only added to his notoriety, as did his manipulative performance in court during his highly publicized trial. In 1979, Bundy was sentenced to death for the murders of 2 sorority sisters in Florida, but it wasn't until 1989 that he was finally executed. What makes Ted Bundy so notorious is the contrast between his outward appearance and the horrifying nature of his crimes. He was able to deceive those around him, presenting himself as a normal, even likable, person. His case remains a chilling reminder that monsters can hide in plain sight, making him one of the most terrifying figures in criminal history. John Wayne Gacy, the Killer Clown, 33 known victims. John Wayne Gacy, infamously known as the Killer Clown, is one of America's most notorious serial killers. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy murdered at least 33 young men and boys in Illinois, burying most of their bodies in the crawl space beneath his home. By day, Gacy was a well-respected community member who often performed at children's parties dressed as Pogo the Clown. But behind this friendly facade, he harbored a terrifying secret. Gacy lured his victims with promises of work or friendship, often handcuffing them under the guise of a magic trick before assaulting and strangling them to death. His killing spree came to an end in 1978 when the disappearance of a 15-year-old boy led police to Gacy's home, where the remains of dozens of victims were discovered. Gacy's trial was a media sensation, and he was convicted of 33 murders in 1980, receiving a death sentence. He spent 14 years on death row before being executed by lethal injection in 1994. Gacy's horrifying crimes and his ability to lead a double life have cemented his place as one of the most chilling figures in true crime history, remembered as a monster hiding in plain sight. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal, 17 victims. Jeffrey Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, is one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Between 1978 and 1991, Dahmer brutally murdered 17 young men and boys. His crimes were especially gruesome, involving dismemberment, necrophilia, and cannibalism. Dahmer lured his victims to his apartment with promises of money or companionship, only to drug and kill them. What shocked the world most was the depravity of his actions, keeping body parts as trophies and even consuming his victims' flesh. Raised in a seemingly normal household, Dahmer's disturbing tendencies began in his teenage years, but his murders went unnoticed for years due to his ability to evade suspicion. His arrest in 1991 came after one of his intended victims managed to escape and alert police. When officers arrived at Dahmer's apartment, they discovered a horrifying scene of evidence that included photographs of dismembered bodies. Dahmer was sentenced to multiple life terms in prison, but in 1994, he was killed by a fellow inmate. His story remains a chilling reminder of the darkness that can exist behind a seemingly normal exterior, making him one of the most terrifying figures in true crime history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy true crime stories and chilling unsolved mysteries, be sure to like this video, leave a comment, and hit the subscribe button for more spine-tingling content.